Welcome to the Dogish podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to do that from now on. This is the podcast dedicated to dog parents on the topics, events, and personalities impacting their lives. My name is not Jasen Arias. It is Sylvia West, also known as Dog Up in This Bitch, certified professional dog trainer, pet expert, and crazy dog mom. And as always, my wonderful co-host is Jasen Arias, and he is the founder of Forever USA, a photography experience for you and the furry loved one in your life. Today, we have on a very exciting guest. She is my coworker, so no pressure, Jasen, okay?
I don't feel pressure.
Don't get nervous, but it's Andrea Servadio, and she is the owner of Fit Dog Sports Club in Santa Monica. She's a crazy business lady. She actually won October 2020 Women's Leadership and Business Award. She knows what she's talking about. So we're going to break down for her dog care, what to look for, and what your dogs may or may not need, and
there was
all
some
of
stuff
that
that just
more.
totally blew me away on this.
Yes, this was Jasen's mind-blowing episode.
Yeah. Everything from puzzles to like this full-on custom gym experience that she offers there at Fit Dog. So super excited to share this with everybody.
All right, so let's jump in and let's get her on. So Andrea, I want to get into it with you. I'm going to get into it with you. No, we're going to talk about the differences between like what you do, because obviously you've run a very successful doggy daycare now in Los Angeles for 10 years. But what I want to hear, and I think what our listeners want to hear, is how you went from investment banker in Wall Street to crazy dog mom to dog mom who runs a business dedicated to her dogs. So talk to us about how Fit Dog started, why it started, and tell us about Brecken too.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here, and I know Sylvia, she's one of our trainers. So of course, when she asked me, I definitely wanted to come on. We started Fit Dog, 10 years ago, and we lived in New York, and I was a banker. I had a cubicle. Actually, I had a nice office overlooking Bryant Park, but just kind of in that space, and just wasn't feeling it anymore. And came out to Los Angeles for a change of pace. And we brought along our dog Brecken, who's a crazy Jack Russell Terrier. So if people don't know, their nickname is Jack Russell Terrace. And they just have like tons of energy. They're really smart, mischievous, and they're not necessarily the easiest to train per se, because they have a mind of their own. So Sylvia's met him, and he's now 12, and you would not be able to tell that he's 12. He still has a ton of energy. Has no idea that he has arthritis or any of the other things going on with him. He's still going at 100%. So this dog is ripping up our floors, and he's so crazy, and adorable. He's so cute. So we have him, and the first thing we do is we need him in daycare. He needs to go do something. We can't have him home all the time. He's going to drive us crazy. And right at the time, back then, doggy daycares were really fragmented. There was no consistency from one place to the other, and also huge disparities from city to cities where people were kind of in this new service, doggy daycare. So when we had him in daycare in New York, we were, used to having a certain level of care and experience, but when we came here, it was just totally different. And we didn't love our options. And so I just said, I want to create something for dogs like Brecken. I want to create a doggy daycare that, offers more, offers enrichment, offers exercise, just offers more for dogs like Brecken, because what was here just wasn't good enough for our little dog.
So when you say enrichment, what are you referring to in so this must have been something you were getting in New York and just couldn't find in Los Angeles. What kind of things in particular were those?
Yeah, so Brecken, in New York, they had a great setup for them. They had a full day, a schedule for them. So they would play, but then they had nap time, and then they had morning walk, and then they would play again, and they had snack time, and they had their afternoon walk, and it was just a really well-rounded, balanced day. Where Brecken came home tired, but you could tell he was happy with everything that he had done, and he wasn't like overly tired. LA at the time was just all about sticking all the dogs in one room. There was this idea that, dogs are pack animals, so they just love being in a pack. So we're just going to put them all in one room and they're going to be happy. And they never left that room. They're there all day underneath the like fluorescent lights. And there was no breaks and no walks and nothing besides this room. And Brecken would come home tired, but he'd also come home sick. He got, numerous eye infections, and he just wasn't good. It wasn't good for him to be always on for such a long period of time. And I thought there has to be a better way. And so, I wanted to offer all those different things at Fit Dog. In addition to walks, we wanted to offer, other enrichment like puzzle playtime. We used to have a treadmill. We don't have a treadmill now, but we had treadmill activities for them when we first opened. And then we end up launching into, hikes, beach excursions, and now we do so much for them, but we can get into that later. But yeah, we just decided, the dogs need more quality, not quantity.
Yeah. And I have to say, as a trainer, when I first got started, a lot of my mentor trainers, and so like this was my mentality too, was like, daycare and dog parks are a nightmare. You should never go there, because in Los Angeles, it was that, it's like, it's just 30 to 100 dogs in a room all day, no breaks. And like, they get cranky, they'd get fussy. Like to me, I just imagine like if somebody put me in a mall for 8 hours and like, I didn't have any money to go shopping, that's probably how I would feel. You know what I mean? It's like just stuck, surrounded by a ton of people and nothing to do.
It's a lot of stimulation. It's a lot of stimulation.
Yes.
And it can be too much for certain dogs. And some dogs, it's not for them at all. And then we've also found that when we first opened is a lot of these working breeds, particularly herding dogs, daycare is not for them. And owners don't like to hear that, because I feel like, if owners are listening to this and they're saying like, but I want daycare, I want someone to watch my dog for an extended period of time. And daycare does offer that. But you have to really understand, the limits of what daycare is. Like, we can provide a nice schedule, and the dogs are cared for. But there is a limit to the type of interaction dogs are getting when they're in daycare. And a dog like a herding dog, they're going crazy. They want to control everything in the group, and they're really smart. They need to be working. They need to be doing more sports activities, like what we do at Fit Dog now, Sylvia, like scent works or agility. They need to be really using their brains and learning new tasks. And, and daycare just doesn't offer that. It's great for some types of socialization, but it's not great for getting the mental stimulation and enrichment that the dogs need.
So let's take a break. Yeah.
Yeah, good idea. I love
Let's
that.
take a little break.
I've got a question that I've been dying to ask for the last 2 or 3 minutes.
I can feel you burning over there, Jasen. I can feel it. Okay, we're gonna come back to Jasen's question in just a second. Stay tuned.
Okay, so this is the question I've been hearing you, Andrea, talk about, like the benefits of not just going to a regular doggy daycare. So what is like a typical day? Is there a typical day at Fit Dog? Like, is there a typical day, or is it something that's custom to a particular dog or a particular breed? Like explain to me. Like, my mind is like racing trying to figure out what that looks like.
So yeah, it actually really depends on the dog. Sylvia's laughing because she knows there's no typical day at Fit Dog.
Like, I just came from there and I'm like, wow, well, this was a Tuesday for sure. So the calendar says.
For sure. So what I think is great about what we've built right now is that dog owners can customize their dog is doing during the day, and they can make their schedule as lean as they want or as full as they want, depending on their dog. So some dogs might be in daycare all day. In some dogs, it's totally okay for them because they self-regulate. They take naps on the yard. They might go for an afternoon walk. They'll have their snack time at 11. So they'll come in, they'll play, they'll do snack, they'll get an afternoon walk, and then they'll play with their friends, and their doggy parents will pick them up, and they'll be completely content with that. And then we have other dogs who do some sort of mix between daycare and our enrichment and sports classes. So some of them, like for instance, today is Tuesday, so they'll come in for pack etiquette, which is a training class that, you know, trains dogs to walk on leash in a group of other dogs. And then in the afternoon, you know, they might, you know, go to daycare, or some owners like piggyback classes. So sometimes they'll do a training class in the morning, and then they might do a sports class like agility or scent works in the afternoon. And then others, they may do like hikes in the morning and then come in the afternoon for daycare, or again, piggyback in another class. So we have some really high energy dogs where owners can piggyback the classes, and the dog is totally fine because, you know, they're just ready to go all the time. And, you know, they just need maybe like an hour and a half nap, and they're just ready. And other times, you know, we might have a dog, we're saying like, you know what, 2 hikes a week is really awesome, and that's what your dog needs to feel fulfilled, and that's their schedule. So it really just depends on the dog. And we love sitting down with owners, talking about who their dog is and what their dog needs, and also what they need as a busy pet owner, because some people work really long hours. So putting that together for them is part of what we do.
So is it like, it sounds to me almost like one of those, like a nice gym membership where you go in and there's a menu of all these things, and you're like, well, we've got Pilates on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you can go over and do yoga, and then you've got hot yoga, and you've got jazzercise and racquetball, and like there's all these different things, right? And then there's somebody like, oh, and you've got access to a personal trainer that's going to try and put together a meal plan for you and all that. Like, am I on the right track visualizing what this is like?
Yes, yes, it is a sports club for dogs. Fit
I
Dog
feel like
Sports
that's the
Club. We
most
are a sports club for dogs.
accurate description I've ever heard of what you've created, Andrea. Like, I feel like that nails it right there. Well done, Jason.
Thank you.
Well done. And like, you know, I want to just really quickly chime in, like, because what I'm hearing from you, and obviously, like, I know you and I work for you now because I believe in what you believe in and what you've created. But what would you say to the pet owner who doesn't understand the value of enrichment and variety in their dog's life? Like, how could you paint that picture for them of how important that is?
You know, it's actually something that I have struggled with over the last 10 years, is to really hone in why it's so important for enrichment. You know, people are like, my dog snuggles with me and he's fine and he's happy. And we had daycare owners that had been with us for 8 years, and we always would say, you know, your dog, has like heart hurting, you know, dog in him, he should really be doing other things. And a lot of times people, they see their dogs in a certain way, and it's hard for them to understand like how much happier their dog will be. And so, you know, a lot of times when we finally get the person to convince them to do the hike, to do the beach excursion, to do the scent works, afterwards, the owner will come back and say, wow, my dog is a different dog. My dog, which is like lifted out of what a depression that I didn't even know my dog was in. My dog is so happy, and they become addicted to it, and they become addicted to the way that their dog feels. So the only way I can tell people about it is to tell it through the stories of others. Because when you just say enrichment or mental stimulation, these words just kind of float around, and people don't really know why it's important, and it's hard to explain unless you actually see the benefit. So for me, I would say to anybody, try it once, you know, just put your dog out there one time and give them this experience, and then you can see the difference, and you will see a difference. You will see a happier, more well-adjusted dog, and you'll be doing it again. And that's what I tell everybody, you will be doing it again.
So for the owner who doesn't have like Fit Dog Sports Club in their backyard, What do you recommend to them? Like, what should they be looking for, like, to spice up their dog's life? Like, do you think that open play daycare is good? Maybe once a week? Like, how did they, for the guy who's like in Iowa where we are not, how do they do this for their dog? What would you say?
Or even like
Yeah,
here in Reno,
that's a okay.
we have options here, and I have a different perspective because my dad actually used to own a doggy daycare here in town, and he opened it because really some of the only other options when people would be going on vacation were vets, where the
Mm,
dogs would stay in a kennel,
Yep.
a very small kennel, for a week at a time.
mm,
And so it's kind of interesting, like I hear all the benefits and all of those things, and I know a lot of the people that used to go to his daycare, like they raved and their dogs were happy and all that stuff. It's just not something that we have access to here, something like this per se. So yeah, so like how would you supplement it, or how, like where's the line? I would assume something's better than just sitting at home alone all day if somebody works a 12-hour shift or something like that. Like what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I know, it's great. It's a great question. So I think daycare is probably better than being a home all alone all day for sure.
mhm,
I've seen the impact of dogs that are being kenneled for 6, 7 hours. It's not
mm,
good. Dogs shouldn't be kenneled that long. Dogs shouldn't be home alone that long. Like we've now all experienced COVID, and we know what it's like to be stuck in our house for
Hmm.
decent periods of time. And usually we're being quarantined with somebody else, and it's still boring, and we can read and watch TV and play games on our phones, and we are still bored. Imagine a dog. Like, this is why they rip through your stuff. You can't
Right.
keep them home alone. So daycare, I feel like, is definitely better than nothing. And depending on the daycare, like, it's been 10 years, so there's a lot of daycares that offer other types of enrichment, like ball pits, like the puzzle play times. They offer additional walks, they offer the snack times. Like, things have evolved so much from 10 years ago. So a lot of daycares have these capabilities. And I would say, splurge at least once a week on your dog, and upgrade to, to some of these additional activities that your daycare might offer. And then if you have a working breed, part of it is, one, trying to make the selection up front that works for your lifestyle too. You have a dog that needs, high intensity exercise every day, but you work 10 hours a day, and there's nothing out there, then that becomes sort of an issue of, is it a good match for you and your lifestyle? But I would say,
mm,
if you have dog hikers in your area or dog walkers in your area, like tapping them. Will sometimes, like before we did hikes, hikers used to pick up dogs from daycare from us, and then take the dogs out. So there are personal, people that you can kind of tap to kind of supplement. But I would say a work like a smart dog that needs a lot of exercise, daycare is good, like 2, maybe 3 times a week. And then the other times it could be like a little bit more high intensity exercise for them. But there's ways to bridge it. And then, of course, when they're home, buying the puzzles, buying, you know, Sylvia turned me on to the Zippy Paws burrows, for instance. The dogs seem to love them, and they're so cute for humans too. They come like, there's milk and cookies, and they have to grab the cookies out of it. There's just a lot of different things that are out there for dogs right now, or those scent, like hiding scent pads, like they're digging pads, right, Sylvia? So you hide
mhm.
treats in there. There's just a lot of things. And I think owners see them in the store and they might say, like, is that worth it? It is. It is worth it. And owners give up though. They'll see their dog's not getting the puzzle. Oh, my dog wasn't into that. No, he was. It just might take some time for him to understand it. And sometimes puzzles are hard and you have to keep working on it. And that's the whole benefit, is that their mind is learning. They're learning something new and they're having this new experience. So, right now I think we're on the fringe of like all these enrichment toys, these enrichment activities are
Mm.
starting to become
Normal.
more popular, more normal. People we're bringing them into the light, and I'm excited for that, because I feel like now we're going to have a generation of dogs who are going to have much well-rounded, schedules and lives. in the cities.
I don't want.
You
I
know
don't
what I
want to
mean? I
take
think rural dogs are different.
I don't want to take the question spotlight, but I have another question that I'm kind of dying. Like this is all totally new to me, and like I just want to know more about it because some of this stuff isn't things that we dig into with our dogs. We spend a lot of time with our dogs. Our dogs go inside and outside all the time. Like there's a lot of interaction that way, but we've never done like puzzles. We've never done anything like that. That's I guess challenging their mind. So if we could take another quick break and then come back, and I would like to know about some of those. And if you have some suggestions on some that I could go pick up, that would be awesome. Okay, so we're back here with Andrea. We just got done learning about enrichment and some of the things that she does there at Fit Dog. What we can do if we don't have a Fit Dog near us, because right now you guys are based just in Southern Cal, like Los Angeles area. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We have one daycare, and then we offer our outdoor excursions around Los Angeles. And before COVID, our classes were also around Los Angeles.
Gotcha. Okay, so we can start with like a standard daycare that we love and trust locally, and then try and expand that into maybe like hikes or other little excursions that we do with our dogs or with a dog walker that might offer in our area. But the other thing that you've been bringing up are like puzzles. Like we were just you were mentioning different puzzles and how it's becoming more normal. But in my brain, like that is I gotta be. I don't think that I've ever gone to the pet store and been like, okay, I need to find an awesome puzzle for the dogs. I'm looking for something that I think that they'll enjoy tearing up or pulling on or like. I mean, we've done some of the treat ones where they have to get the treat out of the inside, but I feel like maybe you're talking about something different, or is it kind of like that?
It's kind of like that. I mean, there's all different types. So you have the stuffable puzzles where, you put the treats inside and maybe, you freeze it, put some peanut butter and you freeze it and it makes it a little bit harder for the dog to get to the treats. So it keeps them occupied for a certain period of time. And then you have others like we really like the Planet Dog Snoop where they have to roll it and then it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Kongs where you have to bat it around and it also comes out. And but then there's other more challenging ones. Some of them have drawers and locking mechanisms, so the dogs actually have to learn how to unlock them and pull out the drawers. And they have different levels of difficulty, so you can kind of you know tier what kind of puzzles is appropriate for your dog. I mean, I have a bunch of puzzles at my house for my dog because even after going to the beach and hanging out at the facility all day, he's home and he's still has energy for some reason. I always say, like, you're 12, take a nap, you're okay. It's like, your old dog, take a nap. But yeah, I have to pull out the puzzles, and that's how I feed him his dinner. So I always tell people, don't think of it as like an additional expense. Think of it as a fancy bowl. Make them work for their dinner. Instead of them eating their dinner in 3 seconds, they
Mm-hmm.
could spend 15 minutes, eating their dinner instead, trying to work out how to get to their food. And I feel like that's just a better use of their time. There's a statistic that says that 15 minutes of mental stimulation is the equivalent of a 3-mile walk. And
Wow.
if you it's kind of a crazy statistic, but it's thrown out there a lot. And I believe that because even like think about yourself, like if you're doing a lot of work, maybe it's desk work or something, and you're having to think through a lot of things, you're tired, you're hungry. It's exhausting sometimes using your
Mm-hmm.
brain. And for dogs, it's no different. So it's just finding ways to make them busy. And there's games you can play too at home. um, you know, if your dog learns how to find hidden treats, you can literally hide things around your house. There's just so many different ways to engage your dog at your house. And if you have a dog that's ripping through your trash, tearing up furniture, these are all ways to keep themselves busy. They're bored. And a lot of times people will be like, "Well, my dog has anxiety, or maybe my dog needs Prozac." I don't know if your dog needs Prozac. If I was home alone 8 hours a day, every day, the sight of you leaving that house would also make me anxious because I don't want to be home alone for 8 hours a day. Can you imagine the anticipation? Like, oh my God, I have to
I would
endure 8 hours of nothingness.
literally,
Yeah.
I would go mad. I would go mad. Yeah, I think that's so insightful. And I think so many pet parents don't think of it that way. Yeah. Cause we're just like, oh, okay, like we'll look at Hunter. I have a 10-year-old 12-pound Pomeranian Chihuahua. Like he's tiny. I'm like, oh, he's fine, but no, he's not. And he's a dog that, like, when he was younger, if we didn't stimulate him enough, would eat my books and whatever book I was reading. Like he would burrow a hole in it. I took it very personal, but that was before I knew anything about dog training. And so what I'm really hearing and kind of what I want to touch on with you next is like the fact that like your dog's mental health should be a part of your budget when you're looking at getting a dog. And I don't know that people are looking at that. And so when we are looking at getting a dog, there's a financial burden that comes with that beyond just like, oh, they need food and water and a roof over their head. What do you think that a pet parent should include when they're budgeting for a pet? And will that determine what kind of dog they get? I think it should, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to frame that, Sylvia, because I do think in general, people do have a budget set in their mind about what they're willing to spend, on their pet. And, mental stimulation toys and activities and things like that seems to just be something that they just never considered and is not in that total number that they have in their head. I think that varies. I mean, look, these puzzles are like what, $15-$20. It's not a crazy amount of money. It's like 3 coffees, if you want to go buy like Starbucks, currency. So I don't think it's that much to do some small things like each month. If you do have like a dog that needs a lot more, we're seeing a lot of shepherds, a lot of what are some of the other dogs, like Rhodesian Ridgebacks and Huskies right now are very popular. And those types of dogs, I would just say, hopefully you have a lot of time or you have a lot of money, because those dogs need a lot of time or they need a lot of enrichment that you're going to have to pay for. So I do think it does matter what kind of dog you're going to get. You want a sofa lounging dog, they still need enrichment, but you could probably say like half day of daycare, couple times a week, and maybe a couple hikes, and that dog's fine. They could be dropped off at home and they're going to sleep soundly on the sofa until you get back from work. But you have a husky, that dog needs to be doing something all day, and
Every day.
that's a lot. So every day, there's no breaks for dogs like that. So yeah, I do think people need to consider it in their budget, and it really does matter on the breed though. Like a husky is going to cost a lot more money, or a lot more time. If you have the time, that's amazing. That they're even happier if you can do it with them versus somebody else. But most of us don't right now, especially if we live in the city.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm like, it's so easy, I think, sometimes for us to get caught up in I don't want to, not necessarily blanket statements, but I've noticed it just over the last 6 months that like I almost project my situation living here in Reno, Nevada, and I've got a bunch of space into what other people must be going through. And I would imagine it gets sent the other way. Somebody else that's staying in a small apartment and giving advice back to somebody who's in this big area. And it sounds similar, even like with what we're talking on daycares and enrichment and mental issues with our dogs and all of these things to get them active, because what it would take to properly care for a husky in an apartment in New York City is completely different than what it would take to care for a husky here in Reno, Nevada with the mountains in our backyard. If that sounds...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, just talking about
absolutely
difference in size and space accommodations, I think a common misconception too for pet parents, and Andrea, I'm sure you've had to deal with this argument so much in your career, is like just because you have a backyard that your dog is running around in doesn't mean that that's the sufficient, like that doesn't mean that, oh, I don't have to walk my dog today because they ran around the backyard all day. Like if I mean, I run around my apartment all day. I know exactly what every nook and cranny and every corner of my apartment is. I'm not discovering anything new. And as a dog who constantly needs discovery and to be, stimulating their sensory senses, running around in your backyard, I mean, does that count every day in, day out?
So can I ask the
No,
both
and it
of you
also
maybe?
makes them very insular too.
Can I
Mm.
ask can I ask you guys maybe a taboo question, and we might need to finish answering it when we get back. But one of the things that I see the value in the human animal bond is what we're getting from being together. Do you see a scenario where it's like, okay, I'm a single person. I
Mhm.
don't really have a lot of friends. My family doesn't live near me. Maybe I don't even have any family. I want to bring a dog into my life so that I have that emotional connection and support, and I'm not going crazy, but I can't take my dog out every single day. And walking down the streets when I get home at night after work, maybe that's not always the best idea. It's one thing to just kind of get out and do like, does that exist or does that not exist? Or is that just too hard of a question to answer?
Andrea, do you want to take
I
a
mean,
stab
you're,
at
you're
it?
asking about like, yeah, I mean, you're
Or should I
asking,
get a
is
cat?
there, yes. So, yeah, yeah. No, I think, yeah, you want a companion and you can definitely have a dog as a companion for sure. I think it really, you just have to pick the right breed or mix of breeds if you're getting, adopting a dog. Uh, that's gonna, be compatible with your schedule and everything. I think people don't really think it through too much. Sometimes it's by looks, like what the dog looks like,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and you can get a dog that's a good companion for you, that doesn't need as much, for sure. And I think it's just finding that perfect mix. And
And then
I think there's a lot of breeds out there that are good apartment dogs.
I'll just chime in here just to play devil's advocate, Jason, and say, I love my husband. We've been together for 10 years, but I do enjoy getting out and seeing other people who aren't my husband. And I think we're all married here right now on this podcast. It's like I think we can all relate. It's like as much as your dog is going to be your companion and your best friend, and like that human animal bond
Mm-hmm.
is so important. I think that a huge important part of your relationship with your dog is allowing them the space and the dignity to be their own personality and have their own likes and dislikes and consent to things that they would enjoy doing outside of your relationship.
Sure.
Just like, yeah, you and your dog are going to go everywhere together, but there's going to be a night that you go, if you are single, that you go on a date and you're not going to bring your dog on your date.
Yep.
And like, why doesn't your dog have a date? So
Yeah, I guess because I always find it very admirable when I talk to somebody. They're like, I don't have a dog because I don't have time for one right now. And I completely understand that. Like, I don't have the space, I don't have the time. So as much as I want to bring that into my life, I'm choosing right now not to. On the flip side of that, I've seen some people where that's kind of showing up as a roadblock when they could bring a rescue into their life, where they do have the time, but they've almost overcorrected, if that makes sense. And so now they're like, I see them like, oh, you're missing this magic in your life. You're missing that happy face when you come home to, and that personality. And I'm hearing like a lot of this stuff, and I love it. Like, I really love that we should be investing more into our relationships with our animals and all that stuff. But I also want to make like are we overcorrecting and telling people like, oh, unless you have 6 hours a day to give to your dog, you shouldn't be getting an animal? And I guess, like, if it's a husky, maybe that is the right thing to say. But maybe if it's another breed that they're just happy getting to spend that time with you for a couple hours a day and it's more chill, that's okay too.
yeah, and I think like to Andrea's point, That's what she's talking about when when you're, when you're looking to get a dog, if you want to go down that road, be responsible. And if you know that, okay, when I got my first dog, I was 21 and I worked in an office and I knew that I didn't have a whole lot of time for a dog. And so I got a dog who was a total couch potato, snoozy puppy that required minimal walks. We would run together in the mornings, but that was enough for her to just be totally conked out. And then I noticed she needed companionship. So I would take her to the dog park on weekends or take her down to my parents' house, and I'd leave her with my mom maybe for a few days and then pick her back up. So I think there's a lot to be said about, yeah, you want this to be your companion. And no, everyone deserves to have the love of the dog. And I think that's where services like what Andrea is offering with, daycare and fit dog, that's where absolutely you can, and absolutely anybody can have time, because here's how you create time, and here's how you create a healthy balance for your dog, so that if you don't have it in you to do it, or you're a busy person, your dog doesn't have to be lonely without you. And still, you can have a dog, and it can be fair. If you have a specific breed that you have to have, just be aware of what you're going to need to provide for that specific breed. And if you're just I want any dog, well, then now you can shop for your lifestyle. And I think right there, we'll take a break. Yeah.
Love that. All right. Okay, I'm just hogging all the questions today. You guys work together though, right? So you guys get to talk all the time. So I'm
all the time.
I'm
we
just
nerd out.
excited to be a part of the crew for a little bit. The pack. So the other thing that you mentioned earlier was you had some people that would come through and say, I didn't even recognize that my dog was depressed, and now I have this totally different dog, and I'm addicted to their happiness and all of these things. Can you think of any stories in particular that really stand out to you of this dog came in and was like this originally, and after doing these kind of things, these were the changes in their lives?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of them. So I don't know if the customers want me to use their dogs' names, but we had one dog. She's a mix, and probably like a hound shepherd, some like a full mutt, but really active. And she had been in daycare with us for maybe 3 years. And he kept telling the owner, hey, this dog can't be in daycare. She's not happy here. And the owner's like, no, she's fine. She's fine. And finally, we're like, well, just go. We'll pay for it. We'll just pay for the hike. We'll cover it for you. Can we just take her out for a hike? And she let us. And then we did, and she was floored. And then we took her again, and we took her again. And that dog has not been back to daycare since then. It's been 2.5 years. She's not meant for daycare, and she's 100% happier. And she also does some of our afternoon classes. And then we have another dog who,
okay, well, hold on.
He's
but what does that mean?
Yeah.
So when you say not meant for daycare and 100% happier, what are those indicators? What were the changes that she noticed in her fur kid that really stood out, that she was like, you were 100% right?
So one is the picture. So one of the things that at Fit Dog we really value is transparency, and also making sure that people know what they're getting, what they're paying for. The dog's having this experience, and the owner's not, but the owner is paying for it. So a lot of what we do is we share a lot of photographs and videos of what the dog's doing during the day. And when we started sharing pictures of her and videos of her and how she was behaving out in the trail, it was just behavior that the owner hadn't seen. She was frolicking. Looked like she was smiling. She just looked like she was just taking in everything. You could see her in her eyes, just her spirit. It was completely different. And the owner said, I saw the pictures and it almost made me want to cry, because I've never seen her look like that. So but in her mind before, she was fine. Everything was fine. She didn't seem like anything was wrong. But when you take it to the next level, you can just feel that the dog is experiencing something, and there's real pure joy and just having these other experiences. And in her case, her dog needed to be having high intensity exercise 5 days a week, and she still does. She's still with us. But I have another a very similar story where this person has been a customer since 2012. Dog's been in daycare, and he's not super high energy, but he's like part shepherd, and he can do more stuff. So we kept saying, like, maybe you want to try once in a while. And finally she gave in, and she's like, fine, can he go to the beach with you guys? And we said, sure. So we brought him to the beach, and the same experience where the owner was like, he looks like he's having the best time of his life. Like, I never even thought about bringing him to the beach. Like, she was in shock. And so he goes once a week. He doesn't need it every day. He is fine in daycare. Like, he does like his daycare friends, but it's something added where he gets to really look forward to something. And he knows the day of the week that he goes. Like, she says to us, he knows today is the day that he gets to go to the beach, and he will never let me miss it. So it's just really just seeing that transformation of their spirit, and just seeing them enjoy life. And in Los Angeles, like you said, the experiences are different from city to city. And being in a city like Los Angeles or New York, this isn't everybody's experience. This is like a small percentage of people's experience. But being here, getting dogs out into nature is really important, and it's important for humans. It's supposed to make us happier too. So I feel like getting them out more is really beneficial for them in a lot of ways. So if you don't have outdoor space, you don't have mountains, just finding some way to get them outside is going to improve their overall happiness.
And then before we run out of time, I wanted to just bring up with you, like hearing these stories, obviously it's so powerful, and your business model for daycare is just different, like you're just doing different stuff. So for the pet owner out there who's like on the fence, and obviously our world has totally changed now, so traveling is not really normal, but I used to be a pet sitter, as like here in my house. Like, what do you say, like, what's the biggest difference between like doing daycare, like going through a pet sitter? Like, what are the benefits and kind of detriments to both or either?
Yeah, so I think it's something that people struggle with when you're in like a daycare environment, and you have boarding. People feel immense guilt leaving their dog, and because it seems like it's just this big facility and all these different people, and maybe their dog isn't getting one-to-one care. That's the impression people get. It's like, and then, oh, but if I leave my dog with a pet sitter, they're going to get one-to-one care, and I can ensure that. So there are some myths around this, and one of them is that when you have a pet sitter, it really depends on what you're getting with the pet sitter, and there's no guarantee. It's a person, and you don't have the fallback of a reputable company, especially if you pick somebody that really doesn't know what they're doing or isn't really following through with your request. And if you have somebody like the ones I really don't like is the ones that go to people's houses when they're traveling. So the dog is at home alone, and the pet sitter drops in like 2 times a day. That, to me, in any scenario, is not a good scenario. That means your dog's home alone all day, feels abandoned in their house. It doesn't matter how awesome the pet sitter is, they're not getting any kind of exercise, enrichment, engagement, socialization. Nothing's happening for them all day. And then they get this walk and, maybe some cuddle time, and that's it. So to me, that's probably a huge disadvantage in that particular scenario. But if you have, a dog staying with a person, again, it's really like the standards. You don't know what you're getting. You have to properly vet pet sitters. A lot of times, anybody can say that they're a pet sitter. Like, Sylvia, you pet sit dogs, but guess what? You're a trainer. You know what you're doing. And that's great. And so, would I leave Brecken with you? Yeah, I would leave Brecken with you. But a lot of times you just don't know. You don't have that transparency when you're dealing with pet sitters. And if you don't want to go through that vetting process, it probably isn't the right process. It probably isn't the right choice for you, because I do think it requires a lot more vetting. On the other side, you have daycares, and again, there are different standards of daycare too. Just like hotels, you get what you pay for sometimes, and but you do get to fall back like on a company. You do know what their policies are, and I would tell people that we care about our dogs. Like, they get a lot of attention from us all day long, and we don't. Just because there's a lot of them doesn't mean that we don't care for every single one of them, and we know exactly who's there, and they're cared for and they're loved and they get lots of cuddles. And my staff has thousands of photos of like every dog that's in there. So I would say that that's a big myth, that your dog might not get the full attention. I feel like they get more attention because there's more staff and more cuddles to go around. So I would just say, be careful what you're choosing. There's some due diligence that has to happen, and making sure that your dog is getting the exercise enrichment during the day when you're gone. Versus like what are they going to get when they're with the pet sitter versus at a facility that has a lot of options for them.
Love that.
Yes,
that was an awesome breakdown.
That was a really good answer. I'm like, oh. So much to think about.
That's always been one of the toughest things for us, is how to deal with. And my dad's sold his daycare and his boarding since end of last year. But that was always one of the most difficult things for us to decide, was what are we going to do with our dogs when we would go on longer trips, like especially when we do like wedding photography, which we don't do anymore, and just those longer vacations, to keep them the happiest. And trying to think through all of that, we knew that sending them to the vet was not going to be what made them the most happy. And we ran into issues too. Like when my dad did own the doggy daycare, he said that they would get burnt out from being at the doggy daycare and would want to know, like, to feel some kind of sense of home again. So then I was fortunate enough that he would bring them home, and he would take them to doggy daycare when he was at work, and then they'd get to come home and then stay over at his house. But I mean, it wasn't just a simple, just do this and make it happen, because one of our, it was really stressful for Maximus in particular if we weren't there overnight. So now we have somebody that comes and actually stays at the house, watches the house, hangs with the dogs, and tries to give them as much normalcy as possible.
Yeah, and I think dogs definitely have different reactions to boarding. Like one person, which I found very humorous, they came in and the dog runs in through the door, and they said to me, yeah, I was packing my bag last night, and now my dog woke me up in the morning because he knew he was coming here. He's like so happy. It's like he hates being with me and he wants to be here. And I was like, really? And she's like, it's ridiculous. Like, he knew I was leaving, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to Fit Dog. See ya.
That's great.
Like, okay, well, that's awesome. But then you have other dogs who are really anxious and they just want to be with their mom or dad at the house and stuff. And some of those dogs, like my staff wears dogs. Like, we have dogs that like live in our sweatshirts. And so I think like it really, it really depends, what they need and and we're willing to do whatever to make the dogs, comfortable. And plus, because we want to be transparent, like we don't want dogs coming in that aren't happy either. So, sure. If a dog is not having a good time or is really stressed out from a boarding experience, we're going to tell the owners, this was tough for your dog, and we would recommend, if you have a close friend, somebody who knows your dog, to stay with your dog, that's probably a better option for you. And I have made that recommendation before for certain dogs, because it's important that your dog gets what they need. It's all about their individual personality. Everyone always says my dog's like a human, and then we say that, but then yet somehow we don't really attribute like all of the human characteristics to them, but we should. They deserve all of them, and they need to have an individualized life just like any one of us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So good. Well, Andrea, thank you so much for popping on with us today. This was enlightening, educational, and I think you gave our listeners a lot to think about when they're planning their next trip. And I think the biggest thing I picked up from like what you've been saying is like, go with your gut and go with your dog and take time to vet out the right situation for them
Mm-hmm.
because it matters, because they matter.
They do. They deserve everything that they want. They're our special furry companions. They deserve everything.
I'll be sure to tell Brecken you said that next time he's begging me for cheese and you're like, no cheese. I'll be like,
Oh my
didn't you
God.
say? All right, Andrea.
Well, people always said to me, okay.
No, what were you gonna say?
Later. I was gonna say, sometimes we have customers and they say, you must think I'm crazy that, I'm so obsessed with my dog. And I said, you're talking to somebody who built an entire business for their dog.
Right.
It doesn't get more crazy than that. No judgment. There's no judgment.
Never. I love that. All right, Andrea. Thank you so much. I will I'll see you at the office tomorrow. But
okay.
Great meeting you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Nice meeting you, Jason.
Bye.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I want to take a quick second to thank both Andrea and you, Sylvia, for hanging out with me again today and putting on a great show. I learned an absolute ton, but I think we've only done it one other time before. We forgot to sneak on our dog dad joke.
You forgot to tell your joke.
Okay. I mean, we're a team here.
All right, we forgot. But I'm ready. I'll field your dog dad joke.
Are you let's see.
I'm comfortable.
Okay, I've got it. Ready?
Yep.
No, not that one. Not that one.
Oh no.
Where is it? Oh, here it is. I'm ready. Are you ready?
Oh no, he's laughing already. I'm nervous.
Okay. What kind of dog loves to take bubble baths? A shampoodle. No. Some of these are better than the others, but I give it all my heart.
I love how enthusiastic you are. Like when you read it yourself, you think it's so funny.
Oh, well, yeah.
Like I love that. It's so good.
I do.
Hashtag dog dad jokes.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So anything, now that we've gotten through that, I want everybody to know anything that we talked about, like maybe some of the products, the puzzles and stuff, we will make sure to put those in the show description down below. Speaking of, make sure that you subscribe. We're on all the major podcast channels, but pick your favorite, click on the subscribe button and show us some love. And then make sure to check out everybody on social media. So we've got Dog Up in This Bitch, Forever USA, and then we have Fit Dog as well. So make sure to go over and check them out. And lastly, if there is a topic, personality, or just like a product that you want to know more about, you want to share, reach out to us. Let us know. We love talking about what you guys want to hear about. So until next time, hugs to everybody, and I will see you guys
air far away, COVID friendly hugs.
I know.
All right.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.